Hi folks, welcome to another episode of My Life with Robert Burns. Jim Thompson and Douglas Mackenzie here again to talk to one of our cronies from around the Burns world. Hi Jim, how you doing?
Doing great, Douglas. Apart from the weather, it's wonderful.
Good. Well, cronies, tonight our guest is the president of the Royalty Burns Club. So cronies everywhere, please welcome Alex Stuart. Hi Alex, how are you getting on?
Hi, Douglas. Thanks very much for the invitation to come on here. I feel a real privilege and an honour among such established and esteemed cronies. Yeah,
Alex, the first thing we always ask is, can you tell us a little bit about yourself, please?
Right. I was born in the east coast of Scotland. I was born and brought up in Dundee. I went to primary school, obviously, and then I went to the Morgan Academy, which years later, my wish was fulfilled because I obviously wanted it to burn down. It burned down about 20 years ago. However, the facade was left and it's been refurbished. So I sang with a beat group. I did theatre. I've got an equity card, and this took me sort of all over the place, entertaining. Sung with a dance band. I was married pretty young, and I was divorced pretty young after having 2 kids.
Can I take you back to the beat group? That's a bit of a term for the past. What kind of music were you playing?
Well, we were playing stuff like the Rolling Stones and Tama Motown and the stuff of the day, you know. As I said, a beat group, but that meant you carried all the equipment. There was none of this boy bands and where they just appear on stage. You had to howl for the gear and get on stage and set up, do the turn, and then disappear. You get paid.
And what was your instrument of choice in these days?
Well, I just sang in these days, and then I decided to learn to play the guitar. And since then, as I sang with a dance band, and obviously just sang with them. But later in life, I did cabaret, so I used the guitar as a solo act, and it took me quite all over the place. England, Scotland. Worked with a few agencies all over Scotland. It was okay when you were young, but when you had a family, it was an absolute nightmare. And that's what caused me to separate when I was pretty young.
Aye. And was most of that round about the Dundee area? I mean, you mentioned going to as far abroad as England, but
I played in Manchester and Blackpool and places like that, down to Corby and Aberdeen, Edinburgh. Then I come over to the west coast of Glasgow. You would play holiday camps and things like that, before they were really well established as what they are nowadays.
Yeah, and was that the career when you left school, or did you go into something else?
No, my whole family were hairdressers. My grandfather, my granny, my mother, my father, my sister, we were all hairdressers, and it was a family business in Dundee. And then, as I say, life takes over, and I inherited the business. Obviously, once my grandfather passed on and my father passed on, I inherited the businesses. And then Dundee was going through renovation in the 70s, and where the business and the property was pulled down. So I moved through to Glasgow about 78 because I was doing quite a lot of work through there, performing-wise and singing and entertaining, theatre. So that was about the size of that. Then I set up 4 businesses in Glasgow. I had 3 hairdressing salons because I become a hairdresser like the rest of the family. I had 3 hairdressing salons, and I had an off sales in the Gorbals in Glasgow,
Right.
which was a license to print money. And being in the licensed trade is what got me into the royalty, because the royalty was formed on the licensed trade. You had to be a member of that association to become a member, and I did that. Once I'd settled down and bought businesses in Glasgow, and then I remarried, and I moved out to Cumbernauld. I've been here for 40 years, where I'm now, in the house I'm in at the moment. So it's been quite an interesting and varied move, Douglas, you know. I've found it quite enlightening, being in Glasgow for so many years now. People say, oh, you don't sound as if you come from the East Coast. But believe me, I can speak like that whenever I want, like, you know what I mean? So I find that when you're entertaining people, you really need to speak in a language they understand. Because if you start speaking in your local dialect, nobody would have a word. You know, they wouldn't know what you're saying. You know, so that was part of it when I moved through to Glasgow. I was telling Jim that as a hairdresser, one of my salons was in Norfolk Street in Glasgow, which was round the corner from the police training centre in Oxford Street. And I had the contract with Strathclyde Police for 30 years, cutting every one of their hair.
Oh, very good.
Aye, men and women. There's no distinction in these days.
So, did you cut Jim's hair?
No.
Well, I
cut
don't.
mine, because I joined Ayrshire.
Aye, well, the shop was in the Gorbals, and I ended up going to the training centre in Oxford Street to cut it, which then it was down by the shooting range, Douglas. I used to kid the folk on, if they complained about the haircut, they'd been to the shooting gallery, you know. Because they had absolutely no choice in the haircut in these days. It was 3 fingers breadth from the collar. And there was a number 2 up the back and sides, and the sides were right up to the ear. There was no side lots in those days. And you shaped all in, and they kept what was under the cap. What was hidden was theirs, you know.
Very good.
So I did that for years, and then eventually the police moved from Oxford Street out to Eaglesham, to a place called Jackton, a brand new training centre. So I went out there and cut their hair as well, you know.
What were the equity cards? Did you do a bit of acting?
I got that because I was treading the boards, doing a bit of acting and singing and entertaining. So you kind of get that. You've got to prove, you know. I worked with a few agencies, MK Entertainments and Harry Margolis, Scott Base, so all the kind of usual ones, you know. And once you can prove that you've been doing that and entertaining and showing your money from it, then you get an equity card.
Did you play any interesting parts?
I've played a few. I've played in Seagulls Over Sorrento. I've played Stranger on a Train. I've played an Inspector Calls. Aye, different things, you know. None of the big things like Braveheart or anything like that. Nowadays, you don't need an equity card, Douglas, because they just come on and talk nowadays, you know, or they get walk-on parts, etc. So, but these days are gone now. I feel kind of beyond that. My life totally has been taken over. I'm involved with 6 Burns clubs, you know. So, so it's. And I've got a family, obviously, you know. My son and daughter-in-law were here last week, and that's why I couldn't come on the show last week. We had to arrange for tonight. So although I was married young and divorced young, I kept up with the family, you know. So
Good.
So it's
So,
interesting.
so when you're talking about the hairdressing businesses and such like, did you eventually give these up, or are they still
Yeah,
going?
well, what happened was when I got married, I used to go to Iona when I was young because I was brought up in the church, you know.
Uh-huh.
I was in the Life Boys and the Boys Brigade and stuff like that, you know.
Yeah.
And I was brought up in the church. And we used to go to Iona when I was young with the youth groups, etc. And when I got remarried in Glasgow, I met a lady who I'd met at a burn supper, and we knocked it off. And after a few years, we got married. And we honeymooned in Iona 40 odd years ago. Because she was the same, she'd gone there as in youth groups, etc. So we spent our honeymoon in Iona. I'm a member of the Iona community, and we would go there, you know, every year for maybe a few days or a week of music and worship and drama. And it was one of these years, 30 odd years ago, when John Bell, who was a leader of the Iona community, asked me, he says, Alex, this is a week of music, worship and drama. Do you want to take part? We've got a drama in the Abbey tonight. I said, yeah. So he gave me the script, and I knew it off by heart, Douglas. I didn't even need to read it. I knew it was, for anybody of your viewers who go to church, it was a reading from the Old Testament prophet Isaiah, and Christ was reading it in the synagogue. And it was the part where it says, the Spirit of the Lord is upon me. He's anointed me to bring good news to the poor, recovery of sight to the blind, etc. And while I was doing that in the Abbey, I mean, there was about 600 folk in the Abbey, Douglas. And I just knew, I had this gut feeling that my life had to change.
Right.
And obviously, in the Bible, it says that Christ finishes the sentence by saying, today this prophecy has been fulfilled in your hearing. And of course, the folk call him a blasphemer, and he gets dragged out the synagogue. Well, I get dragged out the Abbey, and I had to go up to the refectory for a coffee. But for years, ministers had been saying to me, you've got a gift, you should go and study. As I said, I was an elder, etc. in the church. And ministers would say, you've got a gift, you should go and study. And I used to think, no, me, I'm not good enough. I couldn't do that. So when I got dragged out the Abbey and I went up to the refectory, after the service, my wife came in and said, are you okay? And I said, yeah, why? She said, something happened to you up there. What happened? And I was trying to be facetious because inside I was burning. I was a nervous wreck. And I said, was my performance not any good, you know? And then John Bell came up and he says, Alex, are you okay? And I says, yeah, why? He says, what happened? And straight away I said, I was being funny. I said, oh, don't tell me my performance was bad and that's me. I'm not doing it for the rest of the week now. And he says, no. He says, you're being facetious. He says, what happened to you? I said, what do you mean? He said, you had an aura about you. And that just blew me, Douglas. Because I knew, I just kind of collapsed within because I knew that I was called to do this. Now, this had happened in the August, 30 odd years ago. And we were leaving Iona after the week. We left on the Saturday. And John Bell came down to the ferry to see us off. And he said, here, you might find this useful. It was a piece of paper. Now, on the Monday morning, I was up in the cash and carry at 7 o'clock, loading up my car with booze and spirits, etc., to get down to the off sales. I've opened the off sales, put all the stuff in, and then I had an appointment to cut somebody's hair because I had a barber shop next door to it. So I'm in cutting somebody's hair, and the person says to me, how was Iona? And I said, oh, it was great. I really enjoyed it. But at the same time, I'm thinking, Lord, what am I doing here? So after I cut the hair, I took out this piece of paper and I phoned up the number that was on it. And it was Glasgow Presbytery. And I had to go for an interview. And I was eventually interviewed within a couple of weeks and found to be a and proper person, a fit, proper person, with the background was there. And I was enrolled at Edinburgh University. And I started in September. So I did 3 years in Edinburgh and I did a year in Glasgow. And then once I was ordained as a minister, I had to sell all my businesses because you can't serve God in money. So I sold all my businesses to my staff because they knew what they were like. They were busy places and they'd help build them up. So I thought I would give them the first opportunity to buy, which they did. However, I was telling Jim that although I was a minister, I still continued to cut the police hair. And I eventually got a write-up in their magazine. They've got a magazine called Upbeat. And there was a lot of policemen when I was ordained. They turned up with their white gloves and full uniforms and supported me. So the write-up in the paper was Alex Stuart, who has cut the police hair for almost 30 years, I think it was about 28, 29 years by that time, has become a minister. However, the good news is he'll still be cutting your hair. So on kind of quiet days, it was only once a month when they had the intake, I would fire up to Eaglesham, to Jackton, and still cut the hair for them. And then, as it happens in modern day, somebody complained it was against their human rights. So you don't have to be forced to get a haircut now. So that was that. But no, it was interesting. But I've kept up. I've got lots of friends who are in the police, and I've kept up a good relationship with them over the years.
So on the ordained minister side, did you get allocated a church or?
I was in various places. I was minister in Postle Park in Glasgow. I was in Milton in Glasgow. I did a locumship for 3 years in Barmulloch and Balornock. I was in Bishop Briggs for 3 years. And then for 10.5 years, I was in Barlanark and Wellhouse. And I finished off my last 6.5 years in Bailison in Glasgow.
Very good. So are you retired from that now?
Yes, I've retired. Sadly, my wife passed away, Douglas, just at the end of last year. She had dementia, and I cared for her for 10 years. So when COVID came in, that was the deciding factor. That I would, rather than say to congregations, only 20 folk could come in on Sunday, I just decided to retire and look after my wife. Eventually, just in September 22, she had to go into a care home, and sadly she passed away in October last year. So,
dear.
So it's try to get used to being on your own again.
Aye. Well, hopefully the Burns folk round about you will keep you occupied.
Oh, they've been fabulous. I mean, this year I did 18 Burns suppers, so which is a lot. But I did it just to get myself out of the house.
Aye. Well, that's given us the perfect link for me to pass over to Jim to let him talk to you about your interest in Burns.
Okay, Douglas, thank you.
Alex, I mean, it starts with the same question. How did you get started with Burns?
My father and my grandfather, they were both in the Masons, and I was taken along as a Lewis. Nowadays, folk won't know what a Lewis is, and I was entered as a Lewis as an apprentice and was raised in Dundee and Lochee. And they always had burn suppers. So my father and grandfather would take me along to burn suppers if I wasn't engaging in music or acting or whatever. And I found this really interesting. I thought Burns' life was an amazing life. I mean, what you think he crammed into 37 years was incredible. And what he'd come through, every emotion you could imagine. But in these days, you'll know yourself, Jim, it was all male. It was all male folk who attended these burn suppers. And I eventually thought, this isn't right. Rabbi Burns would be appalled if he thought there was no women at a burn supper. So in every club that I joined, basically they were all male. And the royalty was the same. I mean, I've been a member of the royalty for almost 40 years, and they were all male. And I kept saying to them, you know, you can't do this. You can't exclude people nowadays. Burns would never have excluded anybody. Unless you were a cleric or... but I kept pushing and pushing and pushing in the royalty. And eventually when I got on the committee, I kept pushing to have women joining. Because we had 4 things on during the year. And we had a golf outing all male. We had a smokers night, a speakers night all male. We had a dinner dance, which the wives or their lady friends had come along to, and we had the burn supper, which the women didn't come to. And I found that strange. So I thought, you know, once I got onto this committee, I'm going to keep pushing this. So fortunately, in latter years, my immediate past president and a couple of the other ones before that thought this would be a great thing to have women coming along. So we eventually had women coming along to the burn supper. And then when I became president, I made it my role to actually invite women to join the club. So in 2023 at the burn supper, I had a lady there, an invited guest, a lady called Jane Jack, who was the first lady president of Glasgow and District Burns Association. And I invited her along and had her stand up. And then during the evening, I said, ladies, this lady here, as I described her, Jane Jack, I said, and if any of you would like to become the First Lady President of the Royalty Burns Club, come and join us. And I got 12 ladies joining that night.
Excellent.
And more have joined since that, including the past president of the Robert Burns World Federation, Jane Brown. So we're certainly getting there now, you know.
Good, good. And where did the royalty originate? I mean, it's an unusual name for a club.
Right. What happened was it originated when members met in a pub called the Royalty.
In Maryhill.
It was in West Nile Street.
Right.
And there was one latterly in Maryhill Road. There was a pub called the Royalty in West Nile Street. And half a dozen of them or so used to go along there and have a drink, and then they would end up swaggering along Bath Street. And one night they decided that they would like to start a Burns Club in 1882. So they started a Burns Club, and then 4 years later, they joined the Robert Burns World Federation. So we're number 9 on the roll, Douglas, you know. So
very good.
But you could have joined that because you used to work with Diageo, as far as I know.
That's right. You've been doing some research, yeah.
Yes. You've always got to look at things, you know. because and because, as I say, I was a member of the licensed trade, with having the off sales, I could join. But now it used to always be like that. Everybody was involved in the licensed trade,
Right, okay.
and that was my prime thing, was saying, well, look, there are so many ladies nowadays who are licensees, so we need to invite them along. And then things started changing, and it eventually changed last year when I got lady members to join and who are now on the committee. So
very good. Well, I jumped in there when Jim should have been talking to you, so I'll get back to Jim.
No, I spoke at the Royalty one year, long time ago now. It was a pub owner in Kilmarnock had asked me if I would do it, and do the immortal memory, and I went up to Glasgow to do it. It was a really good night, but as you say, it was all men.
But was that in the old days, Jim, when it was in the Albany Hotel?
Yes, the Albany.
Aye, because we used to have, when I joined, we had them all in the Albany Hotel. And then when the Albany was closing down, it's obviously ripped apart now. One of our members, Colin Beattie, who owns a few pubs in Glasgow, owned the Orne Moor. And he said, well, come to the Orne Moor and we'll do the Burn Supper in the Orne Moor. So we'd been using the Orne Moor for about 15 years, right up until 23. That was our last year in the Orne Moor, because by that time Colin had sold it, and the new owners, a new group, Stephen King, who owns a lot of clubs in Glasgow that call themselves the Scotsman Group, put up the price for hiring a room. And this is when we really appreciated what Colin had done, because Colin didn't charge us for the room. And because all the money we make, every penny we earn, we put into buying books for schools called the book's called Burns for Bairns. And we thought we can't afford to fork out lots of money on the hire of a room. So myself and the secretary and treasurer looked about, and we held this year's in the Radisson Blu Hotel in Glasgow, and we're holding it next year. We booked next year for the Radisson Blu as well, because, as I say, we try and raise as much money as we can, Douglas and Jim, to raise this money. In fact, I was down at New Cumnock delivering books to New Cumnock Primary at the start of the year. Have you seen the book? I don't know if you can see it.
Yeah, I've got a copy in the bookcase.
Oh, you've got a copy, right. So we think that's the way of keeping Burns alive to the youngsters nowadays, to take it to schools. And I mean, obviously the book is printed and the royalty pay for the printing of it. So that's why we need to earn as much money as we can, and not fork out on high expense for the hire of a hall, etc. You know.
Very good.
You've obviously branched out, if you're a member of 6 Burns Clubs. So what are the other 5?
I'm a member of the Lark Hall Club. I'm vice president of Lark Hall Club. I'm about to become vice president of the Cumbernauld District Burns Club. I'm a director of Sandyford Burns Club, and I'm a member of the Haggis Club.
I think that's where you know Martin from, Haggis Club?
Yes. Aye. So it's a busy world, as you know, but it's been great. I think the one thing for me, Jim, has been that when I started going to things as president, and folk would look at my chain and say, who's that? I would say, the royalty. And what do they do? And I felt that nobody knew about the royalty. So, well, they certainly know about us now, because I've been out getting involved in everything and anything that's going on in the name of the Royalty Burns Club, because I think it's only right to keep it alive. And the kids are the ones who are benefiting from it.
Aye, I mean, I certainly enjoyed my night. I mean, it must be nearly 30 years ago. I was still, in fact, I think I was working at Cumnock at the time, which would be the mid-90s. I was chief inspector at Cumnock. So I mean,
Right.
it's a good 35, maybe even 40 years ago.
Aye. So who was the president at that time? Was it Walter Glenn or?
Can I remember? It was
Aye.
a fella from Kilmarnock who had a wee pub in Bank Street in
All
Kilmarnock,
right.
who I knew. I knew him in the past, and when he spoke to me and he
Right.
asked me to go. And as I say, it was a thoroughly good night at the Albany, and
Yeah.
some really good performers. I've got to say, the recitations and the music was absolutely terrific. It was a really good night.
Yeah. Well, that's what we try and do. We try and install this. And my attitude is, this is why I do so many burn suppers, Jim, is because I don't take any money from anybody for doing anything. Because I then think I can call on you to do something at my burn supper, you know. So, and that's the way I believe Burns Inn should do it, you know. And as I say, last year, after inviting women to come and join us and getting all these lady members, my top table this year had a lady addressing the haggis, a lady delivering the mortal memory, a lady friend of mine who's a professional singer singing, and a lady obviously replying to the Toast of the Lassies. So, and there was one gent, apart from myself, he did the Toast of the Lassies. So I feel, yes, that is the first, but it certainly won't be the last.
Yeah, good. And what would be your own preferences? I mean, I know you do a bit of singing, but do you do anything else?
Well, as I say, I dress the haggis, I deliver the immortal memory, I toast the lassies, I do tam, and I play guitar and sing Burns songs. But I refuse, Jim, to do them all in the one night. Douglas, you know what I mean? I said that to Jim. I refuse to do it all in the one night. Although there's some places I've turned up and you end up doing 2 or 3 things. You know?
Well, that's just comes. It comes to the fact I used to go to one in the south side of Glasgow, and I went in one night, and the guy who organised it was telling me I was doing about 4 different jobs. But you just get on with it and try your best.
That's it. Yeah, put it across as best as you can.
Aye. You must have a favourite song though if you're a Burns singer.
I've got a few. My favourite is A-Fon Kiss. My love is like a red, red rose. Where Helen Lies. I like Green Grow the Rashes O. Ca the Yows to the Nows. I've got a good selection of Burns stuff that I like, you know. Obviously, there's other ones that I like that a guy can't sing, like John Anderson, My Joe, you know. But I do stuff like Killie Cranky and Macpherson's Farewell and that as well, you know. So
They're good rousing it, particularly if you're playing that guitar.
Yeah, aye, yeah.
Good rousing songs.
If we asked you nicely, could you send us a wee video with some of your songs on it?
Aye, yeah. Right, I don't. Mine's is all in WhatsApp.
Oh, that's okay. We can handle that. Don't worry about that.
Right, okay.
And if you're going to do just a personal request here, if you're going to do Ca the Yows, do the first version, because the last verse of that is probably to me the greatest four lines of love ever written. But, I'm just a Cumnock boy right enough. I don't know that much.
It's fabulous. It's a great song, you know.
It really is, and it's not appreciated as it should be. Purely and simply because he collected it and added to it rather than some of the things that he wrote for himself, you know.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's what Burns was famous for, wasn't it? I mean, he collected old music. He was brought up learning old Scottish songs and old songs, obviously from his mother and Betty Davison, and he learned them and he went round in his latter years, collecting and writing 300 odd songs. You know, it's quite a talent.
It is, and I mean, Scottish Musical Museum, he's 5 of the 6 versions. There's 5 of the 6 chapters, sorry, the 6 different books.
Yeah, yeah.
Burns is
Right.
responsible for 5 of them. Amazing. But
Yeah.
I mean, having listened to you playing the guitar, you're obviously very accomplished. And I'm not saying that to pander to you, but I mean, having been here listening to you live, you definitely are accomplished.
I enjoy it. I enjoy it,
Did you
Jim.
ever
You
do
know,
it professionally at all with Burns? Or was it all just the kind of pop stuff or whatever?
obviously, just no. When I went to a Burns supper or somebody would ask me to sing, I would sing. You know, I mean, I do lots of ballads as well. I do Tom Jones and Engelbert Humperdinck and all these Elvis and stuff like the Everly Brothers. But my preference is for Burns stuff. You know, it's just something that ekes away at you. It's just the emotion, and I set each piece to the way I want to play it, to put my own feeling into it. I tend not to do things the way that they're done originally. You know, I'll stretch things out a bit, or I'll speed a bit up, and I'll slow a bit down, and I just put my own expression into it, because a lot of them are really, really emotional love songs.
Mm-hmm.
You know.
And apart from Tom, do you recite anything else?
I do wee bits and pieces. Tom's the only one that I know fully, you know. There's, I mean, other poems that you could do. I mean, you could do A Man's a Man for all that as a poem, as what it was, you know. But I can do parts of To a Moose, but I've never had time to learn them all professionally enough. I'm the type that if I want to do something, I want to do it to the best of my ability.
I mean, if you've learned all these songs, you know that's enough to cope with.
Yeah.
And if we're able to get, as I say, a couple of recordings of 2 or 3 songs, we'll tag them on at the end. Mm-hmm. So, can I get to move on to talk about something that's more topical? You were involved in the Bar Church window restoration thing. Can you tell us a bit about that?
I was there on Monday, and I was amazed by the number of Burnsians who turned up, and I met folk who I'd only spoken to over the phone. It was really good meeting folk from Irvine and different. I met Richard from Irvine as well. So, and I know Kerry personally as well. Kerry's a good friend of mine. From the Sandyford. She's also a member of the Royalty Burns Club. And it was good catching up with folk, Kathy Costello and Laurie Headley and folk. You know, it was really, really interesting seeing the work that they did on this, the restoration of the broken pane, which I didn't know until the time where the pane came from, but it was from the manse. Where George Laurie was the minister, and Burns had made an inscription on the window to Mrs. Laurie. So, so that was all fixed up. Obviously, you can still see the cracks on the glass, but glass is a thing that I don't think you can ever get it fixed properly without seeing the joins in it. But it's been sturdily enough, and it'll last, as the guy from the repair shop said, it'll last for another couple of 100 years. But it was a marvellous piece of skill to restore it and get it back into that pane.
Wonderful. Absolutely wonderful. Just while we're on that thing, I saw something coming through from the Ayrshire Association of Burns Clubs that you're going to be speaking at Dalry on the 5th of September. What's that all about?
Is it the 5th of September?
Aye, 1st September, aye.
Right. It was John Hodgegard that asked me if I would go along and do that, because I had John doing the festival fringe, because I emceed everything at the Kilmarnock festival week, apart from singing and Weatherspoons. And John asked me if I'd go along and do a talk about Burns and intersperse it with music and songs. So I said I would tell him my life story and intersperse it with Burns songs. So I'm looking forward to that.
It's a lovely club though, right? And John's very good. John's been on here doing stuff.
Right.
It's
Aye.
lovely man.
Is it not held in a pub or something?
It's right, Bob.
Aye. The Volunteers Arms.
The volunteer, that's where they are now, aye.
I'll read out for the benefit of the audience who might want to get in touch with Dalry. It's been held in the Masonic and Volunteer Arms in Dalry at 7:30. And it's the Thursday, the 5th of September.
That's it.
Yeah. There you go. So that'll increase your audience because we've told the whole world about it.
Good. Aye, good.
But it's always a good turnout there, though. I was up. John had me up there talking about Tam O'Shanter not that long ago. I think it was earlier. It's earlier this year or the end of last year. I can't remember now. I'm getting old age.
Jim, tell me this: if you've been there, what size is the room? I mean, do you think I'll need to bring sound equipment, or will I?
No, it's your average pub kind of lounge bar size.
Right.
I would say it's maybe 30, 40 feet wide by about. It's not that deep. It's only about maybe 20, 25 feet deep. So it's not a bigger place at all. And the bar, which is sectioned off because the actual serving of drinks through the other side.
Right.
It's a kind of
so I won't need speakers, etc. I'll just take my voice and my guitar. Yeah, that's fine.
Well, I was talking to them without any microphone or anything like that, and I'm quite soft voiced and I get no complaints.
Right, that's fine. That's great. It's good. I mean, I generally just turn up to a place and sing and talk to them, but I like to know the size of a place if I need sound equipment, etc. But because I've got quite a booming voice, so I can. I'll be heard.
Oh, you'll be heard all right. That's for sure.
I'm looking forward to it.
Oh, they're a good bunch of guys up there.
Lovely. Good club.
Aye.
Right. John said there probably be about 30 there, 35 maybe. So. Is that about right? Yeah.
If it's a lot of the time there are others coming in as well, because you've got Irvin and Irvin Lassies and stuff.
But John probably didn't know you were going to be advertising worldwide on YouTube.
Aye, yeah. No, I'm looking forward to it. I thought it was nice to be asked, and I've looked it up. I could probably be there in about 45 minutes or something, so without speeding. I just need to try and find my most direct route. Whether I go through Pete Johnson and down that way or whatever. It's
probably the quickest Johnson, actually.
Aye.
I think that's Johnson.
All right.
I know we're going out to the world, but we don't need to do the sat-nav thing.
No. Aye. No, I'm looking forward to it, and I've also got other things in the pipeline that folk have asked me if I'll come along and do. So I've said but they're next year, so.
That was going to be my question. Where do you see you going with as the next stage in your Burns life?
Well, as I say, I'm vice president, so I'll be taking up a presidency again, and obviously I'll become past president of the royalty, which I will continue to work with. Because I enjoy it, and I believe in what they're doing and raising money so that books can go into every school. And I delivered 1,000 books last year, and we got another 1,000 printed for the start of this year. And at the moment, I've got about 300 left, so I'll be getting them out. and then we'll need to order more.
That's excellent. And do you get a lot of good feedback from the schools?
Yeah, well, all we ask Douglas is that they can either get a nice letter sent to the club thanking the Royalty Burns Club for the donation, but lots of the teachers now get kids holding up the books or reading the books, and it's good. And then I go along to the school competitions and adjudicate at them, but that is so time consuming as well, as you know.
And the letters you get, do you keep them all in an album or something like that?
They're all on the website. If you go to the Royalty Burns,
oh wow, that's
the Royalty Burns Club 9, and have a look at it, and you'll see letters and photographs of the kids with the books, and the letters we've got for school teachers, etc. So it's been great.
Yeah, good.
And it's good for them.
So is that just royaltyburnsclub.com or something like that?
It's royaltyburnsclub9.com. The number 9, because we're number 9 in the federation.
Ah, right, so, okay.
www.royaltyburnsclub9.com.
Right. I'm sure there'll be a few folk who will look at that.
You'll get the whole history of the club on it there,
Excellent.
So, and on the Facebook bit at the bottom of it, there's places for people who want to join or ask questions or become a friend. When you go into the last page, contact us. It'll come up with Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. And if you click the Facebook page, you'll see all the letters and the kids with the books. So it's good. It's very fulfilling.
Good. Well, Jim, we're kind of running out of time, especially if we're going to try and put 2 or 3 songs on at the end. Is there anything else we want to ask Alex before we finish? No,
I just want to thank you for having me on here, and keep up the good work of getting Burns' name spread throughout, not just Ayrshire and the borders of Scotland, but throughout Scotland and throughout the world, because he is a global figure.
Yeah.
He's world renowned, as you know. So I think you're doing a fantastic job. And I know that there are folk who live in the States and Canada, etc., who've all contributed to the podcast. So keep up the work.
Good. Thanks for that. It just leaves me with the pleasure of saying to you, thank you very much, Alex, for telling us about your life with Robert Burns. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Jim. Thank you very much, Douglas. Thank you.
Right.
If one kiss and then we sever, a farewell and then forever, deep in hell from tears I'll pledge ye, warring sighs and groans I'll wage thee. Who shall say that fortune grieves them, while the star of hope she leaves them? Many cheerful twinkle lights be, dark despair around benights me. I'll never blame my powers of fancy. Nothing could resist my Nancy, for to see her had ne'er been broken-hearted. Fare thee weel, the first and fairest. Fare thee weel, the best and dearest. Thine be ilka joy and treasure, peace and joy with love and pleasure. A fond kiss and then we sever. A farewell, alas, forever. Deep in heart from tears of plenty, warring sighs and groans I'll wage thee. A fond kiss. Ca the youngers tae the nose, ca them more the heather grows, ca them more the bonny rose, my bonny dear. Hark the babe receiving sound, sun and cloud and split some mine, then a fall and let us gang, my bonny Ca the yows tae the nose, ca the more the heather grows, ca the more the bonny rose, my bonny dear. We'll gang down by Cludden side, through the hazel spread wide, o'er the waves that sweetly glide, tae the moon so clearly. Ca the yows tae the nose, ca the more the heather grows, ca the more the bonny rose, my bonny dear. Fair and lovely as thou art, thou hast stolen my very heart. I can be but tear apart, my bonny dear. Ca the yows tae the nose, ca the more the heather grows,